I still remember the bone-chilling cold that day, not from the winter wind slipping through the window of my small Fayetteville apartment, but from a single line of text on my phone screen. One message, heavy enough to outweigh all the years I stood in the midst of smoky battlefields. "Don't come home for Christmas. We think it's better if you don't." Sender, Robert Monroe, my father. I read it over and over, hoping my eyes were playing tricks from exhaustion, hoping for a typo to cling to. But no. Each word stood cold and precise, like an administrative notice. No "hi, honey," no "we miss you," not even an explanation. Just 7 words, slicing into my heart like a dull knife. My name is Rachel Monroe, 35 years old, a former U.S. Marine. I served nearly 17 years, stationed across bases and deadly lands, watching comrades fall beside me. I thought if I could survive all that, I'd find some peace back home with my family. But it turns out the deepest pain doesn't come from bullets. It comes from the people who share your blood. I sank into the wooden chair by my small dining table. The Christmas lights I'd hastily hung days earlier twinkled by the window, reflecting on the still-lit phone screen. I waited for a follow-up message, an explanation, even a missed call. Nothing. My mother was silent. My brother, Tyler, was silent. It was as if the whole family had signed a silent pact to exclude me from our holiday reunion. In the military, they teach you to shut off the valve of emotions to survive. Amid bombs and bullets, you can't afford to tremble or show weakness. I thought I'd mastered that skill. Yet this message made my heart ache fiercely, like a mortar had just exploded in my chest. I set the phone down, my hands shaking so badly I knocked over my half-drunk glass of water. The dark red liquid spilled across the table, pooling like blood. I let out a dry laugh, a bitter sound with no joy, only resentment. Memories flooded back. The nights I called from a Middle Eastern barracks, hoping for a "we're proud of you," only to hear my father sigh and dodge with, "don't tell me stories that upset me." The times I sent money to fix the roof, buy a car, pay bills, and they took it coldly, as if I were a mobile ATM. And now, when I longed for a warm Christmas reunion after leaving the service, they bluntly told me, "don't come back." Maybe to them, my return was an inconvenience. I'd hoped for too much. I picked up the phone and typed a single word, "fine." Not the weak "fine" that begs for a follow-up question. This was a final, resolute fine. Fine, meaning it's over. Fine, meaning no more chances to hurt me again. I canceled the plane ticket I'd booked 3 weeks earlier. My hard-earned savings turned into a cold booking canceled on the screen. I shut the laptop, opened the liquor cabinet, and poured a glass of red wine. I raised it and whispered, "Merry Christmas, family." No clinking glasses answered me. Only the silence of my cramped one-bedroom apartment, where the colored lights flickered but no one sat with me to watch. That night, I sprawled on my single bed, staring at the stark white ceiling, listening to the wind howl through the window cracks. Something inside me shattered and collapsed. The irony was, I thought I was used to abandonment, fallen comrades, reassigned commanders, relocated bases. But the pain of being cast out by my family cut the deepest. The question looped in my mind, why? What did I do wrong? I know I'm not perfect. I'm short-tempered. I've argued with my father. But after everything, did I deserve to be erased from my own family's Christmas? Maybe they thought I'd stay obedient, forgiving, waiting, hoping. But this time, something in me shifted. I wasn't their little girl anymore. I was a soldier who'd faced war, carrying scars and hard-earned lessons. And I understood that sometimes silence is the cruelest response. I closed my eyes and told myself, "Fine. If they choose to shut the door, I won't stand on the porch waiting. I'll walk away, carrying myself." That night, in my cold apartment, I faced my first rejected Christmas. But I didn't know then that this moment would open a new chapter, a journey not just to confront my family, but to rediscover my own worth and strength. I'm sharing this story not to complain. I know out there, others have been turned away by the very people meant to love them unconditionally. If you're listening, you might carry a similar wound. Leave me a comment. Have you ever felt rejected by those you love most? Did you stay silent, endure, or stand up to protect yourself? I want to hear your story because sometimes shared understanding can help us find light in the darkness. I used to think my greatest battles were fought on the battlefield, where gunfire drowned out breaths and a moment's distraction could cost a comrade's life. But I realized there are fiercer fights, silent ones within a family, where the enemy is the very blood you call your own. At 18, I left Fayetteville in a crisp new uniform, boarding a bus for recruits. I hoped my father would hug me or at least say, "Stay safe, sweetheart." Instead, he stood in the yard, arms crossed, and spat out 4 words. "Don't embarrass us." That was it. No smile, no proud glance. My mother, Evelyn, clung to her sleeve, trembling as she whispered, "Don't upset your father." My brother Tyler, then 17, stood silently behind, eyes down, a shadow of Dad. I understood early on that in our house, siding with Dad meant peace. And I, from a young age, learned to stand alone. In the years that followed, I threw myself into training, fighting, and climbing ranks. When I became a sergeant, I sent home a photo from the promotion ceremony, hoping for praise. Dad's reply? "When are you sending money for the roof?" So I sent it. I sent money when Tyler needed a used car for work. I sent it when Mom needed medical bills covered. Sometimes they responded with just a smiley emoji, a hollow symbol in place of the family warmth I craved. I told myself, if I try hard enough, they'll accept me. But that Christmas, sitting alone in my apartment, staring at Dad's message telling me not to come home, I realized no amount of money could buy love that didn't exist. In a daze, I started sorting through old files. My military paperwork box was stuffed with medical records, transfer orders, and unopened letters I'd never dared revisit. I opened an offline email folder from my military hard drive, searching for a distraction. And there it was, a PDF titled Mortgage Agreement, 12 Winmere Lane. My heart pounded. I vaguely recalled, at 27, home on leave after grueling training, Dad shoving a stack of papers at me. He said it was just a bank refinancing technicality, needing my signature for credibility. Exhausted, desperate for his approval, I signed without reading. Now reading each line, I froze. In the event of primary borrower default or voluntary transfer, cosigner assumes controlling interest until full loan maturity. In plain terms, I, Rachel Monroe, co-owned and held 51% legal control of the house my father proudly called his life's achievement. I bit my lip, hands trembling so much I had to set my glass down to avoid spilling it. A wave of pain and bitterness surged. That house was the home I longed to return to, the one I'd sent every paycheck to maintain. Yet Dad had the audacity to tell me, "Don't come back." In that moment, I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Laugh at fate's irony, or cry for living like a fool, chasing love that was never given. My heart tore in two. One side screamed, "Take it back! They deserve the consequences for dismissing you." The other trembled. "They're still your parents, your blood. Are you cruel enough to do this?" I sat for hours at my desk, staring at the contract on the screen. The blue light illuminated my haggard face, reflecting bloodshot eyes from sleeplessness. Memories flooded back, brief calls from the desert, sending money with hopes of being remembered, lonely Christmases. Finally, I took a deep breath. This wasn't about love anymore. This was about boundaries. I'd given them too many chances, and they'd proven time and again that to them, I was just a shadow, a wallet to tap. I opened my contacts and called an old military buddy, Marcus, who'd been a real estate lawyer before enlisting and returned to the field after discharge. "Rachel, been a while, what's up?" His voice was surprised but warm. I swallowed hard, keeping my tone steady. "I have a question. If someone co-signs a mortgage with a controlling interest clause, what rights do they have over the property?" A pause. Then he answered firmly, "If that's the case, the co-signer, you, has legal control of the house. That right can't be disputed." His words hit like a hammer, heavy yet igniting. I was no longer the outcast. On paper, I was the true owner. And my father, who'd callously cut me from our home, would soon realize he'd made the biggest mistake of his life. If my story's starting to grip you, leave a comment with a why. If it's not quite there, don't hesitate to type N. Your feedback will tell me if I should keep sharing the deeper secrets from these old files. Some decisions change your life in ways you never expect. For me, it was that evening alone at my old wooden desk, placing a letter on thick white paper, each word cold and precise like an indictment. I, Rachel Monroe, as co-owner, holding 51% legal control of the property at 12 Windmere Lane, Fayetteville, hereby declare full exercise of management rights per the contract terms, effective immediately. All further communication shall be through my legal representative. Signed, Rachel Monroe. I folded the letter, sealed it in a yellow envelope, and stamped it. As the postmark went down, my heart slowed, heavy but resolute. For years, I'd been the outsider in my own home. Today, on paper, I held the key. I imagined them opening it. Dad, Robert, would probably slam the table, yelling that this was an insult. Mom, Evelyn, would sob, muttering her usual, "You can't do this to your parents." Tyler, my brother, would stay silent, eyes averted, standing behind Dad. And it unfolded just as I pictured. Days later, my phone buzzed relentlessly. 10 missed calls from Dad, Mom, even Tyler. I didn't answer. I wanted them to taste the silence I'd endured for years. When an unknown number, a lawyer, called, I finally picked up. His voice was urgent but polite. "Ms. Monroe, I believe there's a misunderstanding. Your letter. It's caused great distress. Surely this is just a wording issue." I gave a faint laugh. "No misunderstanding. I have the original contract and my lawyer. This is my legal right, not a game." A pause, then a soft reply. "We can negotiate." I hung up. I left Fayetteville, driving hours to a rented cabin in the Smoky Mountains. In the dead of winter, snow blanketed everything. The wooden cabin nestled among pines, with a stone fireplace and windows overlooking a distant valley. I sat by the fire, listening to the crackle of burning logs. For the first time in years, I felt peace. No ringing phone, no orders, no Dad's scowling face. I sat there for hours, with only wine, wind, and memories. Part of me ached. Why did the home I longed for become a legal battlefield? But another part felt relieved. I'd finally set a boundary. The next morning, Marcus King, my old military buddy, now running a property management firm, called. "Rachel, I checked out 12 Windmere Lane like you asked. Sure you want to hear this now?" "Go ahead." "Your parents have been illegally renting out 2 upstairs bedrooms. College students, cash payments, no formal contracts. The house is also deteriorating. Leaky basement, moldy walls, unrepaired roof. They've turned it into an illegal cash cow." I went still. The house I once called home, despite being rejected, was now a cheap boarding house. I didn't know whether to laugh at the irony or cry from shame. "You sure, Marcus?" my voice caught. "Positive. I've got photos. I'll send them." I sat stunned, feeling the last remnants of affection for my family snuffed out. Not only did they reject me, they used my name to secure a loan, then turned the property into a black market rental. I opened my laptop and drafted a second letter colder than the first. "Per my 51% controlling interest, I hereby declare all rental agreements at 12 Windmere Lane void, effective within 30 days. Any continued illegal leasing will result in legal action and eviction of all tenants." Signed, sent. That evening, Mom called. Her voice trembled, choked with sobs. "Rachel, please don't do this. You know your father's hot-headed, but deep down he loves you. He's just not good at showing it." I closed my eyes, gripping the phone. How many times had she said this? How many times had she begged me to endure for her own peace? "Sweetheart, your father hasn't slept in days. Tyler's scared. If you do this, we'll fall apart." I cut her off. "Mom, we fell apart long ago. I'm just claiming what's legally mine." Silence. Only her broken breaths. I didn't cry or tremble. My voice was even, calm, like reading a military report. "I'm not doing this for revenge. I'm doing it to set boundaries. If you and Dad can't respect me as a daughter, at least respect me as a legal co-owner." She sobbed and hung up. I set the phone down, staring out the window. Snow fell, blanketing the forest. A strange emptiness filled me. I knew behind her tears and pleas a storm was coming. Dad wouldn't accept defeat easily. And I, Rachel Monroe, the daughter once cast out of Christmas, had become the reluctant landlord. But this role would pull me into a confrontation fiercer than any battlefield. If you want to hear more stories like mine and relate to the struggles I'm facing, check out my previous videos on this channel. On January 2nd, I returned to the house on Windmere Lane. The bone-chilling cold pierced my thick coat, but I didn't shiver. In my pocket, the original contract rested like a shield. Beside me were Harold, my lawyer, and Marcus, my veteran friend and property manager. A locksmith followed, carrying his toolkit. I took a deep breath. After all these years, I wasn't returning as the rejected daughter, but as the legal owner. Dad opened the door. His face was flushed. Whether from anger or liquor, I couldn't tell. What the hell is this? A posse showing up at my house in the middle of winter to pull some stunt? I stepped past him without asking. The familiar house unfolded before me. The smell of old wood, yellowed walls, the sofa where I'd once napped after long shifts on leave. But on the shelf, the photo from my promotion ceremony was gone. Only frames of Tyler and Dad remained, their smiles stiff. My chest tightened, but I didn't let it show. Mom Evelyn appeared at the staircase, clutching her rosary, eyes teary. "Rachel, sweetheart, what are you doing? This is still your home. Don't turn it into a battlefield." I met her gaze. "Mom, I'm not making it a battlefield. You all did that long ago when you shut me out of every dinner and Christmas." Tyler sat on a chair, hands clasped, eyes averted. His silence cut deeper than any shouted insult. Harold spoke, voice calm. "Mr. and Mrs. Monroe, per the signed mortgage agreement, Ms. Rachel holds 51% control of this property. We're here to enforce that right. You have two options: sign a legal lease under her terms or vacate within 30 days. Dad slammed the table, a glass jumping, red liquid spilling like blood. "This is my house. I poured my sweat into it. That brat did nothing but sign a paper and now comes to steal it." I pulled the original contract from my bag and set it on the table. "You needed my signature because you didn't have enough credit. You called it a small technicality, but that technicality gave me this right. I'm not stealing. This is the law." He lunged forward, face purple, pointing at me. "You're a traitor. You're not worthy of being my daughter." My heart stung, but I kept my voice steady. "I used to want your love. You didn't give it. Now I want boundaries, and I'll keep them." The room fell deathly silent. Mom sobbed, clutching Dad, pleading, "Robert, stop. She's our daughter." But he shoved her hand away. Tyler started to stand, then sat back down, head bowed. It felt like a family trial where I was plaintiff, defendant, and judge. I didn't yell or cry. I let the truth speak for me. Harold placed more papers on the table. "If you agree to sign the lease, we can keep things orderly. If not, Ms. Rachel will proceed with legal action and seek an eviction order." Dad stumbled back, collapsing into a chair, breathing heavily. He aged before my eyes, but his gaze still burned with resentment. I knew he wouldn't sign easily, but for the first time the power dynamic had shifted. I turned and walked out. The winter wind hit my face, stinging but cleansing. Behind me, Mom's sobs mixed with Dad's curses, while Tyler remained a silent statue. I stood on the porch, snow falling under the streetlights. For the first time in years, I felt free, not because I'd won, but because I'd stepped out of the role of rejected daughter to become myself. My phone rang at midnight. The screen lit up the dark room, showing the caller, Tyler. I hesitated, then answered. His voice trembled, hoarse. "Rachel, Dad's in the hospital. The doctors say his heart condition flared up badly. He might not make it. If you don't come, you'll regret it forever." His words stabbed my heart. Tyler had never begged me for anything. Now he sounded like a man clinging to a lifeline in a stormy sea. I stayed silent for a long time. Dad's voice from January 2nd echoed when he pointed at my face and yelled, "You're not worthy of being my daughter." Now, less than a week later, he lay in a hospital bed, facing the line between life and death. I gripped the phone, palm sweaty. The vengeful part of me screamed, "He disowned you, kicked you out of your home. He deserves this loneliness." But another part whispered, "He's still your father. If he dies and you don't go, can you live with it?" I sat in the dark, memories rushing back. In Afghanistan, I'd faced death countless times. One night, our convoy was ambushed. Bullets roared, dust choked the air. I pressed myself into the hot sand, heart pounding. As I thought I wouldn't make it, a comrade's hand reached out, pulling me up. We ran, surviving by inches. That moment taught me, survival isn't just skill or weapons. It's the fragile thread of humanity. Trust in each other kept us alive. I took a deep breath. Maybe now I had to choose humanity too, not because Dad deserved it, but because I needed to free myself. At 2 a.m., I drove through snow-covered roads to Cleveland Clinic. The city was silent, only the crunch of tires on icy pavement. In the rearview mirror, the red flash of an ambulance reflected, reminding me time was slipping away. At the hospital, Tyler waited in the hallway, face gaunt, eyes red. Seeing me, he rushed forward, voice choked. "Thank you for coming. He's in critical condition in the ICU." I nodded and followed him. The door swung open. Dad lay on the bed, his once robust frame shrunken under a white blanket. His face was pale, sweat-soaked, lips cracked. The monitor beeped slowly, dragging. The man who'd screamed at me now looked small, fragile. I stood at the threshold, feet glued to the floor. Memories flooded. Dad's coldness the day I enlisted, ordering me to shovel snow the first Christmas after my promotion, tricking me into co-signing the mortgage. The wounds piled up, choking my throat. Tyler nudged me. "Go in, he needs you." I stepped slowly to the bed. Dad opened his eyes. His cloudy pupils moved, settling on me. For a moment I saw tears glisten in the corners. His voice was hoarse, weak. "Rachel." I didn't know how to respond. I just stood there, hands trembling. He raised a shaking hand, then let it fall. I grabbed it. His hand was cold, frail, unlike the one that once swung a hammer to build the house brick by brick. And then something I never thought I'd hear came from his lips. "I'm sorry." Just 3 words, but my heart shattered. The man who'd never admitted fault, never shown love, now sobbed on a hospital bed saying those words. Tears burned my cheeks. I didn't say "I forgive you." I just held his hand tightly, whispering, "I'm here. You're not alone." The room fell silent. Tyler stood at the foot of the bed, shoulders shaking. He turned away, but I saw tears glint in his eyes. Mom collapsed into a chair, face buried in her hands, sobbing. I didn't blame her or comfort her. I just sat, holding Dad's hand, letting my tears fall. In that moment, a small crack opened in the wall of resentment built over years. The wall didn't collapse, but a sliver of light broke through. I left the hospital at dawn. The snow had stopped, the early winter sun rising. The sky was pale blue, strangely clear. I knew the war with Dad wasn't over. But for the first time, we weren't absolute enemies. I once thought my only victory would be reclaiming the house, making my parents feel the loss I had. But leaving the hospital, with "I'm sorry" still ringing in my ears, I realized revenge was never the answer. I needed something else, a resolution I wouldn't regret. When I returned to 12 Windmere Lane, snow still blanketed the porch. The house looked quiet, like it had weathered a storm. I opened the door. Dad sat in the living room, in an old sweater, looking a decade older. He didn't yell or curse. He just bowed his head, nodding slightly when he saw me. "Do what you want," he said, voice raspy. It was the first time I'd seen my father lower his head. A man who lived for control, now humbled before the daughter he'd once cast out. I felt no triumph, only a mix of pity and caution. I called Mom and Tyler to the dining table. A new stack of papers lay before us. "I'm not kicking anyone out," I began. "But from now on, this house will be a shelter for female veterans, women like me, back from war with nowhere to go. You can stay, but as tenants, following the same rules. Contribute to costs, no illegal rentals, no treating this as your birthright." Mom cried, grabbing my hand, not the weak pleas of before, but with genuine remorse in her eyes. "I'll do it. I'll clean, cook for the women, just give me a chance." Tyler was silent for a long time, then looked up, voice firm. "You're right, I'll help, It's late, but I want to stand with you this time. I looked at them, not fully trusting, but the ice between us had cracked. In the weeks that followed, the house transformed. Marcus helped me renovate empty rooms, fix the roof, and seal the basement. Women in thick coats, still bearing the weight of military packs, moved in. Some carried physical scars, others mental ones. I saw myself in their eyes. At night, we sat around the fire, sharing stories we'd never tell family. We didn't hide nightmares or force smiles when speaking of fallen comrades. Here we all understood. Dad, weakened after his illness, no longer shouted or gave orders. Instead, I saw him quietly fixing the fence, clearing snow from the porch. Once he brought back a bag of gloves and knit hats for the women, leaving a scribbled note. "Cold nights, use these." I read it and froze. Maybe he was learning to love in his clumsy way. Mom changed too. She woke early to cook breakfast for the house, brewing hot coffee. She lingered to listen to war stories, awkward at first but softening. Her eyes no longer held the fear of "don't upset your father." Tyler started bringing friends to help repair the house, repaint walls. He told me he'd stood up for a young coworker bullied by a boss. "I'm not staying silent anymore," he said. I realized my defiance of Dad had paved the way for him to stand tall. A year passed. Christmas came again. Outside Monroe House, the name I gave this place, a row of candles glowed. The female veterans and I stood together, some laughing, some crying. Inside, the smell of baked goods and Christmas music filled the air. Dad sat quietly in a corner, not joining the noise, but his eyes followed us, glinting with regret and gratitude. Mom brought out more cookies, resting a hand on my shoulder, silent. Tyler set up a tree outside, hanging a silver star, flashing a rare smile. I stood on the porch, holding a candle. Its small flame flickered in the cold wind. I knew the old pain wouldn't vanish after a few winters. The wounds lingered, memories still stung. But forgiveness isn't erasing. It's opening a new path for light to creep in. I raised my candle, its glow reflected on the faces of the women beside me, survivors of war's hell, now finding a home to start anew. This Christmas, I didn't light a candle for my parents or the old family. I lit it for myself, for the girl who once stood in the snow, rejected, and for all the women like me, returning with cracked hearts but daring to believe they deserve love. Perhaps the greatest lesson I learned wasn't owning a house, but owning my heart. I went from rejection and rage to facing my father's frailty, choosing forgiveness. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting wounds. It means setting down the burden of hate to be free. I realized true strength isn't in retaliation, but in turning pain into healing. Not just for myself, but for those needing refuge. The house on Windmere Lane, once a symbol of division, became Monroe House, a haven for women returning from war. Each candle lit on Christmas Eve was for me and for all those left in the dark. If this story resonates, leave a comment, like, and follow the channel. The next story might just touch where your heart needs it most.